Hello and welcome everyone to Explore Classroom. My name is Gina Borgia and I am so glad you are joining us today. At National Geographic, we believe in the power of exploration, wonder, and storytelling to change our world for the better. This Explore Classroom YouTube show connects students from around the world with our National Geographic Explorers for short lessons and time for your questions. Today, our explorers are Brian Buma and Jeff Kerby. Brian is an ecologist and published author who focuses on dynamic changes in ecosystems. In 2019, he led an expedition to southern Chile, where he and his team documented the southernmost trees in the world. Jeff is an ecologist and an award-winning photographer, focusing on documenting rare behaviors and remote regions. He's at the forefront of blending photography, ecology, and technology to address conservation challenges. This summer, Brian and Jeff are teaming up on the Edge of the World expedition to travel to the far north coast of Greenland to explore what's called the last ice area. Today, we'll learn how Brian and Jeff are preparing for their upcoming journey north and what they hope to discover and why that's important. But first, I'd like to say a great big welcome to our viewers around the globe. Our shout outs for today go to Crest Academy, Fairhaven Middle School, Woodstock School, Thomas Jefferson Middle School, Westmont Hilltop Elementary School, the International School of Dusseldorf, New Hope Christian School, Hillard City School District, Luceño School, the Summerlin family, Amberwood CIC, William F. Holleran School, Lucy V. Barnsley Elementary School, the McCormick family, McPherson Elementary School, Planet English School, and NYISE. And a special shout out to all of our homeschools out there. We are thrilled to have you all here. And with that, let's get this Explore Classroom started. It's time to turn it over to Brian and Jeff to share about the Edge of the World expedition. Take it away, team.
Thanks so much, Gina. That's an awesome introduction. Yeah. So hi, everyone. It's great to see you. Jeff and I are really excited to chat with you about what we're planning on doing and hear your questions, because this expedition hasn't happened yet. So we've done several expeditions in the past and have some experience, but we've never been up there. And so there's a lot of unknowns, and we're looking forward to hearing your thoughts as well. So maybe you guys have some good ideas about the best way to explore this remote region. Let me introduce the team here. So we're going to be heading up to the northernmost land on the planet, the last place you can walk on dry land before you end up on ice or the ocean or both. And our team, we have 4 people on our team. So you got an introduction from me. That's me on the left. As Gina said, I'm an ecologist that's mainly looks at plants. Jeff there, holding a drone that looks like a crazy airplane, is a science photographer, but also an ecologist as well. And then 2 other folks that aren't on this call, but I want to make sure that you know who they are. One is Ole Binneke, who's a geologist in Denmark, and then Kim Young, who's an educator. She's actually a teacher in New England. So where is the last land on Earth? Where do you think the northernmost bit of land on the planet actually is? It's kind of a weird question, right? I mean, turns out we don't really know all that well, which is kind of an odd thing to say. I mean, you'd think today, we have satellites and we have space shuttles, you'd think we'd know, where the last island or last bit of land is, but we kind of don't, which is kind of a weird thing. We know where the last big bits of land are. It's in northern Greenland. So if you're like my kids, getting Greenland and Iceland confused is a common occurrence in our household. Greenland's the further north one. It's covered mostly in ice, actually. And on the very northern edge of Greenland, pretty close to the North Pole, is this island called Kaffeklubben. So that sounds like coffee club because it does mean coffee club. So there's this island called the Coffee Club Island, which is off the coast of northern Greenland. And that's where we're going to go. We're going to go to this northernmost island, and you can see that on the map here. If I highlight it here, that's right here, Kaffeklubben. But north of Kaffeklub, and there's a bunch of other potential islands. And what's the weird thing about exploring this area and trying to figure out what lives there and what the northernmost plant on Earth is there's a bunch of other small islands that people sometimes see or sometimes find, but then they can't find them again. They're like wandering islands. They're like disappearing islands. They'll show up and someone will be there and there'll be this little island like the size of your classroom. And then someone will go back the next year and it's gone. And that's an odd thing, right? So we're going to go up there with Ole, who's a geologist, and we're also going to and look for plants and animals on it to see if we can determine if they're permanent or not. And that's kind of a surprise. You can see a lot of them. They got some cool names too, like Stray Dog and Resurrection Island. They called it Resurrection Island because when they found it, it was emerging from the water because the water was draining. But our goal is to figure out what's there, where it is, and what's living there. And that's a challenge though, because that's a really, really long ways away. So I'll pass it over to Jeff to talk and maybe get some ideas from you on the best way to get up there.
Yeah, well, I think when we're working on a team like this, you have to combine all the different ideas when you're faced with kind of challenges that no one has faced before. Like, we don't really know how to get there because we don't know exactly where it is, but we have a couple of ideas. So maybe you guys could help me out. Like, how should we get there? Should we rent a car and just drive up there? What's the best way to get to the northernmost land in the world? All right, well, you can send in some things with your teachers, but I think the main way that we're looking at is to get an airplane. And we'll have our own special airplane that can land in really kind of rocky or snowy bits of land. We don't need a regular runway. And we'll get to fill it up with all sorts of stuff that we might need. So that's the next big question that we face. What kind of special tools or bits of gear would you bring or should we bring when we're going to the northernmost lands on Earth? And we have to really ask ourselves this question because if we forget something, it's not like we can go to the store and buy it because we forgot it. So we have to think really deeply in advance. So I see a couple of questions or answers already. Yeah, jacket is pretty critical. You want a jacket. You probably want some really warm boots. And then you got to bring all of like the bits and pieces that are helpful for being a scientist, so you can like see stuff far away. But I think someone wrote one of the things that I'm most concerned about because, when you're in a cold place, you can get, extra hungry. And if you're carrying all sorts of gear, whether it's like cameras, if you're carrying a camera like this or two of them, it gets really heavy. But you got to bring all your food with you too. So luckily, we have some cool solutions to that. And you can get food that looks like this, just in a little bag. So I'll show you. It's like a powder kind of food. And so it's really light and easy to carry. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna cook a little dinner while we do the rest of the presentation so you can get a sense of how we solve that particular problem. You just take some boiling water, you kind of dump it into the bag here. And I'm gonna make some chili. That's what I'm having today. Last time I did this, I had some reindeer stew, but I think it's time to do something different. So don't mind me while I'm cooking here. You can see that there's all sorts of different things we want to bring in our own special airplane when we go up there. But yeah, let's keep thinking about other stuff we might want to bring. You can keep sending those comments in. We can talk about it when we're done with this little lesson. So right now I'm just kind of stirring up my dinner. But let's move on to the next bit. So yeah, we're going to the north of Greenland. I think Brian has the pointer, and he can move that little red dot so you can see where we're going to. And this is this is a part of the world that has a lot of things going on. It's kind of where land ends, but it's also a place where there's lots of ice. So at some points in time, you could take a walk from northern Greenland and walk up to the North Pole. But if you walked in a straight line, you'd kind of get pushed around as the ice keeps moving. That's because the ice is changing a lot in this area. And if you look at it, sometimes it goes away in the summertime, and then it comes back in the winter. And this is going to be one of the places that as the Arctic warms up, there's going to be much less ice here in the future. So it's a part of the world that is changing really fast. It's getting warmer, the environment is changing, and this makes it very interesting for scientists to want to go there and see what things are there now and how that might be changing as climate and environments change, especially in a place that is really cold adapted and where temperatures will be changing fast.
Okay, so what are we going to do up there? We're going to find the last island, and we're going to figure out where the edge of the world is, or if we can find any of those little islets that seem to come and go. But we also want to do some science up there because as Jeff was just saying, this landscape is changing really fast, and trying to understand how it's changing, what that means for the animals and plants that live up there, and what that changes, what that means for us is a challenge because it's so far away. So, why don't you in the chat throw in what you think we should be measuring? Because I'd love to know what you think, because a big part of this expedition is actually thinking ahead to when you guys are the explorers and you guys are going up there, because the world changes, but we can't always watch it. So one of the things we're trying to do is measure plants and animals up there, and we're going to record that. That's our goal. But to know how it's changing, someone needs to go back, and it's a long ways away, right? Like there's the plains, there's the polar bears, there's all sorts of things. And so the next person to go back is probably going to be one of you guys. It's going to be someone who's a kid these days, is going to go back and remeasure things and see how they've changed. So this expedition is really the start of a much larger expedition that's going to include you. 20 years from now, you guys could be the ones heading up there. So there's some great suggestions in the chat. There's things like what types of plants are up there, how much ice there is, soil. Those are definitely things we're going to look at. One thing we're going to do is figure out what the northernmost plant in the world is. We don't actually know. And then when you guys go up 30 years from now, you'll be able to tell us if it's changed. And we'll also measure soil. We're going to see how deep the ocean is right offshore there, and how deep the ice is. And all those things we're going to record, and we're going to record them with these things called plots, like permanent plots. So you can see one there on the right. That's my team on the ice field in Alaska recording plants in a permanent plot. And then we'll go back and we'll see how much they change. So exactly what you're saying. But we're going to do more.
Yeah, and luckily we can do so much cool stuff now because the tools that we have available have just grown and grown and grown over the last few years. So even when I started becoming a scientist, we didn't have cool stuff like drones that you could, get really small, that could fly far away and help gather all sorts of information. And this is just perfect for a science photographer. So if you kind of like look into the camera there, there's two little cameras on the end of this drone, and we can use it both to help us gather information for science, but also to just tell stories about what the place looks like. So on this screen, you can see a couple pictures from other regions in the Arctic that I've worked. And drones are really nice because they can give us an eye in the sky. Where we're going, there won't be a lot of mountains we can climb up on top of to get a good view because there'll just be kind of ice out there. But we'll want to know, hey, is there an island off in the distance? Well, we could just pop a drone up into the sky and take a look one way or the other and say, oh yeah, like let's go that way. Or you could just get a sense of how big a place is. The other nice thing about drones though, is you can make really cool maps with them. If you kind of zoom back and forth like a lawnmower, taking tons of pictures, you can stitch all of them together and make a map kind of like Google Earth, but accurate to like a centimeter or a millimeter. So really good information that we can use to see what's there and that other people can use to see what's there in the future. But it's just a flying camera. So we'll take cameras like this and cameras like this right here. This is like a lens that can get really, really close to plants and even go underwater a little bit. to get like neat macro views of how they look. And so if we find the northernmost plant in the world, we're going to have to spend a lot of time taking cool pictures of it. So that's kind of the plan for the tools we're using.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take a lot of pictures of it because it's a special plant. Yeah. And let me tell you, the drone technology is a pretty amazing thing. And I bet you guys have seen some cool drone photography in your day as well. So the bigger science question we have here is how the edges of life work, because as you know, the climate's warming up, and so and changing, and so as the climate changes, we think that plants and animals really need to move. They need to, because they're very much adapted and evolved for whatever climate that they live in, and if that climate's moving, they got to go. And so the action is like the action's all on the edges, the edges of their species ranges, and as species range is where where it lives. And so if you go to the northernmost edge or the southernmost edge, meaning as far north or south as they get, that's where you should see the changes. So here's a question for you. Why are there no hippos in Denmark, or polar bears in Australia, or penguins in North America? Right? I mean, I don't know. Thoughts? These are where we're looking for changes. This is where we're looking for if the hippos are moving north. If it gets warm enough, will hippos invade Denmark? Probably not for a while. But yeah, someone's in the thing. They said in the chat they're adapted to certain climates, and so we want to go to the. And I see someone celebrating. We want to go to the northernmost edge of the plants up there and life up there. And then again, we're going to see what's there now, but you or someone like you is going to be up there exploring 30 years from now or 40 years from now, and you'll be able to tell us if they're moving, if things are changing up there as the climate warms up, as that ice goes away, as the environment gets a little bit warmer. And what's kind of fun is we don't know what we're going to find. We have some guesses, but we don't really know what we're going to find. We don't know what the northernmost life is on Earth. So we've got some candidates. I'm on team saxifrage. I think it's going to be a little purple pink flower. That's what I'm going for. They're these beautiful flowers. I'd like to vote for team saxifrage. The reason is this plant is actually the plant that's found at the highest elevation in Europe. So we know it can handle cold. It's the highest vascular plant. So meaning a higher plant, a plant that grows off the ground of flowers. But it could be something else. Could be lichen, could be a moss, could be something else. Type in the chat if you have any thoughts about what the northernmost life on Earth is, or speak up, because I'd love to hear your thoughts. Because again, we got to prepare for this sort of thing. Jeff's got to pick the camera to bring. I got to pick the tools to bring to measure it. We gotta be prepared, because as he said, we can't go back. But I'm voting for this little pink flower. You type in the chat what you think. Jeff's got another idea.
Yeah, well, I was thinking long and hard, because this is an important question. And it came up that maybe it could be an Arctic fox, because part of being a photographer or a scientist is just kind of preparing and reading about things that you might encounter in a place. And I read this one story about how a fox walked from this kind of Arctic island called Svalbard and walked all the way up past like part of where we're going in North Greenland and then over to Canada. In 3 weeks, it walked 2,000 miles. And it was kind of in the area of where we're going. So at first I was like, oh, well, yeah, like Arctic fox, like it's just walking way up there. But I don't know. I don't know if this is a good guess, because maybe on one day of the year, it's the northernmost life on Earth, at least on land. But then if it walks away to Canada or something, yeah, maybe it won't be. So it depends how technical you want to be. If we get lucky, could be an Arctic fox, but I think, yeah, Brian might have some more insights onto a safer bet. I don't know, but hey, I've seen some other fantastic suggestions in the chat. A tardigrade is Maybe that's my new favorite. Whoever said that, that's a solid choice. But I got to think about how I'm going to take a picture of the tardigrade. Huh.
Cod. Yeah, well, someone from Westmont there mentions cod, which is a fish, which is a great example of a marine organism, of something living in the ocean. And of course, we're just looking for things on the surface. Although Jeff may be able to take a few pictures of things just underwater.
Yeah, no, we're hoping to, this one lens can go underwater a little bit, might be able to bring up an underwater drone a little bit, depending on how much weight space we have in the airplane. I can choose between food and airplane or drone space. So I'll have to have a chat with Brian about that. We'll see. I might have some snacks now at the end, but yeah.
And there's that chili, and we are going to be eating that dehydrated stuff morning, noon, and night. So don't tell our doctor. There's a lot of salt in that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it would be awesome if you guys could get involved too, because, you know, like I said, we want you to follow us up on these great explorations to the northernmost land on Earth. But in the meantime, we actually need your help. Scientists that look at the edges of species ranges, like I was saying, the places at which things are moving when they adapt to climate change. Well, we can only track a couple things. Like there's going to be a couple species up there in the northernmost bits of Greenland. And like was said earlier, I've gone and explored the southernmost tree in the world, and we've found some down there. But there's millions of species on the planet, and there's no possible way scientists can follow all of them. So we really do need your help. And so I wanted to show you this project that you and your teachers could potentially take advantage of, or you and your parents, or you and your grandparents, or you and your friends could potentially do to help us explore, because there's actually species range edges everywhere that we need to follow. When you see this map, this is just North America. Every orange dot is a different species, the northernmost place we know of for that individual species. And you can see they're all over the place. And the blue ones are the southernmost range. So I'm going to actually share this website with you real quick to show you where it is. And so now I think I heard we had Crest Academy, which I believe is in Salida. I could be wrong. If it's in Salida in Colorado, that's not too far from where I'm living right now. Should be right in that area. And so if you zoom out, what you see is that there's actually a lot of range edges around Salida. There's a lot of southern range edges here. And so, for example, near you is this thing. This is the southernmost Russian wild rye, kind of looks like that, that we have a record on. And remember, someone had this brilliant idea that climate change is causing species to move because they're adapted to certain climates. So what do you think is going to happen to the southernmost edge, the southernmost example of this species, as the climate around Salida warms up a little bit? Is it going to be able to move north, or is it going to stay there? I have no idea. And that's why we need your help. I believe we also had some folks from Pennsylvania. If you're in Pennsylvania, there's tons of edges for you. There's lots of places to look. So for example, let's say near Pittsburgh, if you want to go looking, the northernmost, oh, it's another saxifrage. The northernmost of this guy is right there. Now, is it going to migrate north? I don't know. We need you to go out and find it. And it's very much like a treasure hunt, because all you do is you figure out what species near you has an edge, and then you go out and look for it, and you explore, and you look through the parks, and you look through the old lots, and you look through the forests around you. You may have to do a little detective work and look up the plant and see where it likes to live. And you can go out and hunt this thing down and take a picture of it and post it, and it'll show up on this map if you set a new record. And there's a lot of records to be set. So the link to that for anyone, any of the teachers or the interested kids, is in the chat. So let me go back to the slideshow here. Okay, so I'll end up with this one. If you're interested in the expedition, we'll have questions soon. And I'll leave this up for now, and I'll take it down and put it back up again. You can sign up to become an official Explorer Expedition classroom, either you can email us, or you can go to our website, or you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram. So I think we have time for questions now.
Expedition sounds so exciting, and we can't wait to hear about what you find. Okay, students, I know we have a lot of other questions, but we're coming to the end of our show. I wanted to ask both Brian and Jeff, do you have general advice for our young explorers out there? Something you can share?
Sure. I would say just get outside and start exploring. And you can start really close to home. If you want to be an explorer, science is the way to do it these days. We have so many cool things to explore, and not even just the outside ecology. There's also exploring the stories of your neighborhood or the stories of your family. Being a scientist and being an explorer is really just about being curious and then doing something about it. So you guys have an infinite amount of questions you can ask and explore, and have fun with it, because that's really the most important thing, and that's what'll keep you going, is have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can explore everywhere and anywhere. And that is just kind of the most fun thing about like kind of thinking about things in this way. Every day I take a picture of the tree outside my window right here. And then, it seems kind of boring if you just look at one picture, but then I put like 50 or 100 of them together. And I notice all sorts of cool stuff in it. I can see when spring arrives. I see people walking in the park or different animals. And there's always something to find nearby to be interested in or to make you curious. So yeah, I think that would be my advice, is just to enjoy exploration anywhere.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian and Jeff, for being here with us today and sharing about your amazing work. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Thank you all.
Absolutely. And to all the students out there, we appreciate your thoughtful questions, and a big thank you to the teachers for making these events possible for your students. And we hope you join us again soon. We'll be right back here next Thursday with Explorer Nicolas Perez Consuerga, who's going to teach us about geoscience and Earth's changing landscapes. And the following week, we'll have Explorer Ana Maria Benavides, who specializes in studying air plants. So you can register your student group for a shout out during the event and a chance to be up here on screen with us at natgeoed.org/Explorer Classroom. A big happy Women's History Month to everyone out there. We encourage you to learn about the women who have helped shape our world. Teachers, you can help students celebrate and learn more about this history with our curated collection from the resource library. And you could check out our most recent virtual field trip, which features some of the amazing women explorers here at National Geographic. And we'll send those links to you out in the chat so you can take a look. And last but not least, happy St. Patrick's Day. Have fun, everyone. Have a great day. Stay curious, keep exploring, and we will see you next time on